Let's say you're from India and you are a member of some small religious group, religious minority that's being persecuted. And you've been in the US for 3 years now, but recently violence against your particular minority group has ramped up. One of the types of cases that we handle in my office are applications for asylum. Asylum is sometimes referred to as political asylum, but it doesn't have to be political. Asylum is when you apply for protection in the United States based on a fear of persecution in your home country. And that persecution must be based on your political opinion or your race, religion, nationality, or your membership in a particular social group. A big problem with people who've been in the United States and who wish to apply for asylum is that there is a 1-year filing deadline from the date you've entered the United States. If you fail to apply for asylum within 1 year of physically entering the US, then you might be ineligible, and many people often are. Recently, I've been asked by several clients about possible exceptions to the 1-year filing deadline. So that's what the topic for this video is going to be. Some exceptions to the 1-year filing deadline that might allow you to apply for asylum after you've been in the US for 1 year. So a lot of these are in the regulations, but there's also a variation that I'm going to talk about afterwards that you can't clearly find in the regulations. So the first way that you can qualify for an exception to the 1-year filing deadline is if there have been changed country conditions that give you a new fear or which make your fear larger. They pronounce your fear of persecution if you return to your home country. For example, let's say you're from India and you are a member of some small religious group, religious minority that's being persecuted. And you've been in the US for 3 years now, but recently violence against your particular minority group has ramped up. It's increased in intensity, and now you really have a new fear of returning to India. That might qualify you to apply for asylum now based on changed country conditions. And typically speaking, after there have been changed country conditions, you must apply for asylum within a reasonable time. What's considered reasonable is a case-by-case determination, but I generally tell people that you should try to apply within 6 months of some changed conditions, but it can be longer. For example, if you're traumatized or you have some sort of personal issues that prevent you from applying within 6 months, then under those circumstances, 12 months might be reasonable. It's going to be up to the asylum officer or the immigration judge to make that determination down the road. Another way that you might qualify for an exception to the 1-year filing deadline is if there are changed personal circumstances that give you a new fear of returning to your home country. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're from a Muslim majority country where the punishment for converting to a different religion is death or something really bad. Let's just use death to make it easy because that is universally really bad. If you change your religion to Christianity now, even though you've been here for a few years, you might qualify for an exception to the 1-year filing deadline because now you have changed personal circumstances and you must, as the rule goes, apply within a reasonable amount of time of those changed circumstances. Now let's look at a third possible variation of this. Let's say you've been in the US as a student. You've been here on an F1 student visa for the last 5 years. And now your student visa is coming to an end and you need to decide if you're going to go back to your home country or if you're going to stay in the United States. Actually, the fact that you maintained lawful status is an exception to the 1-year filing deadline. And when your status expires, you must then apply for asylum within a reasonable amount of time, even if there's no new fear or changed personal or country conditions. Now let's look at a third possible variation of this that differs from those first two clear examples that I gave. Let's say you've been in the US as a student for the last 4 years. You've been on an F1 student visa for your entire undergraduate degree, you graduated, now you are in your 1 year of training, OPT, and that's going to come to an end very soon. Once it comes to an end, you must apply for asylum within a reasonable time. Actually, the fact that you maintained lawful status is an exception to the 1 year filing deadline. So the general rule is once your status expires, you should apply for asylum within a reasonable time, which again, for most people would probably be within 6 months. If your OPT or your F1 status or any type of status fully expires and you don't apply for asylum and you wait like a year and a half, there's a good chance you will not meet the requirements for asylum, and eventually when someone decides your case, there's a good chance that that might be the reason your case will get denied. Practically speaking, the implications of failing to apply for asylum within the 1 year deadline or within a reasonable amount of time if you qualify for an exception, the consequences are massive. If you apply for asylum and your case gets denied, your case will get referred from the asylum office to an immigration judge, where you often have a second opportunity to apply for asylum. If your case is already in front of a judge, then that's it. If your case gets denied, you get a final deportation order. So the consequences can be very dire. And if you're in the US with some sort of legal status or you're not in immigration court proceedings, when you apply for asylum, your case will get sent to the asylum office. And they might not hear your case or decide your case for anywhere from 6 months to 10 years, literally. I've seen cases take 10 years in New York. 10 years from now, your life circumstances might be very different. The president might be different. The consequences of being denied asylum might be different. So these are just some of the considerations that I explain to people when we're deciding whether to apply for asylum. If you are considering applying for asylum and you want to talk to somebody, please let me know. You could schedule a consultation directly through my website. You can give us a call. You could even send us a quick email if you have any specific questions. I would be happy to go through your entire situation from start to finish, to explain to you the probability of being granted asylum, what evidence we would need if we're gonna apply, and other considerations like what happens if your case gets denied and we have a really bad precedent for immigrants when your case gets denied. What other things should we consider? What happens if your case ends up going to immigration court? Will you qualify for other defenses if push comes to shove and we need to try to defend you from removal from the United States? These are all things we would talk about during a consultation. Alright guys, that brings us to the end of today's video. If you have any specific immigration related questions, be sure to put them in the comments below. If you're posting your questions more than 1 week after I post the video, you should post them on my most recent video because those are the comments that I'm going to reply to. If you're interested in immigration related topics, I post them on a weekly basis, so be sure to subscribe so you can see my new videos each week.